People who work for companies with a bad reputation, Nestle, Monsanto, Electronic Arts etc. How do you feel about it, and how has it impacted your life and relationships? I've contracted at a lot of those companies, and honestly while the company may be bad, all the people who make up the company are just people. They are there to make money to support themselves and their families. When I found out I was assigned contracting work there, I was a bit apprehensive given their reputations, but they also paid the most money by far and had really good benefits, so my experiences were mostly positive. That's why socialists like myself want systemic change and think individual responsibility isn't the right mindset to holding bad business practices to task. Most of the people in Nestle aren't trying to be evil. They are trying to provide for themselves and their families. Instead of trying to convince everyone to up and boycott the products and quit Nestle, it would be a lot simpler to make it law that Nestle can't bottle local water sources and sell them abroad. Nestle can survive making less money as a company. Individuals have a much harder time surviving quitting their job. Someone who was a loose acquaintance at my high school was the son of someone working at EA. EA's reputation at the time wasn't quite so bad as it is now, but it was pretty bad. He'd do tours and interviews for kids from the school who were interested in game development, devoting time from his day to show students his field because he felt it's something exciting. Turned his position at a not so reputable company into a positive for a lot of a younger generation. Thought it was pretty neat that he did that. A good friend of mine works for Altria, aka Philip Morris, the world's largest cigarette company. I've asked him this question, and this was his answer, paraphrased from memory. Pretty much all big companies are evil in one way or another. This one happens to have better pay and benefits than most. Sure, but the largest company, Fortune 100 Financial Services, I worked for was the least shitty in my opinion. I wouldn't lump every company into the bucket if they all suck. The leadership was more competent, and every employee was smart and extremely knowledgeable that I came across. It was actually a joy to be surrounded by so many smart people in every facet and constantly be challenged and learn. Having worked at other huge and medium-sized companies in tech, finance, and education, this company was night and day different than others. Do I agree with every product and service they offered? No, but the company truly cared about its customers and employees. People as a whole enjoyed working there, the pay and benefits were great and the people knew that. There is a reason the company made a ton of money, especially per employee, and was a leader in many ways. Is it a perfect company or place to work? Of course not. The biggest reason probably was because it was not a public company. It had no shareholders to report to, and was not driven by quarterly earnings. Having worked at a company that sold a shitty product/service that was borderline a scam, all the employees knew it. The culture was terrible, turnover was high. People who were smart left for better companies and the tenured people were lazy, unmotivated, and were there because the money was good enough for not doing anything at work. So what you have left is a company full of people that are only there because everyone with a brain and the ability to work somewhere better eventually did. I worked in it at the Corp. HQ of a large MLM company. Pay and benefits were very good. The corporate culture was very family focused, and most employees were the type that you would describe as great neighbors. Since they are one of the largest employers in the area, there was no stigma with the local people at all. Working there had one advantage. When people from out of town asked me where I worked, and I told them, there was rarely any tedious discussion about what I did. Did I like it? Everyone was afraid I'd try to recruit them. I work in marketing at a Christian radio station. Priests, church, prayers, the whole thing. I'm an agnostic atheist and have some issues with a lot of religious things, so I'm somewhat in conflict myself. I also do get the occasional flack for it, but I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. The work is interesting, they respect me not being Christian, and it is hands down the healthiest work environment with the friendliest coworkers I ever had. EA is one of the biggest hiring companies for starting out game developers in my area and even the world. They don't have a terrific reputation even from the people who work there, but roping them in with a company that literally kills babies is a bit far. They're one of the only game companies that hire people with no official experience, and they release AAA games that a lot other game companies want to see on a resume. I don't work there yet, but I plan on applying there when I'm done school, and I know a lot of people with the same plan. They are far from perfect. For example, they mostly hire people on 6 or 12-month contracts who then can't work at EA for 3 months after said contracts end. That is kinda shitty, but the silver lining is then that opens the door for different people to get hired to beef up their resumes. You can also use that time to apply street other studios. A lot of my instructors and friends I know have or do work there, and literally no one I know thinks less of them. TLDR, EA bad, but seriously, they aren't as shit as Reddit likes to believe. I used to work for Shell. I kind of fell into the oil industry because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was mostly okay with it because oil is a necessary evil, and anyone who thinks they are above oil is kidding themselves. Oil is fueling every aspect of your consumerist lifestyle, and it's at the very core of our economy. However, I still didn't feel that great about it. I no longer work for oil despite my degree and experience being well suited for it, just because I had the feeling if the whole company went bankrupt it wouldn't be a bad thing. Now I only work for companies I don't have to feel guilty about. I work for a similarly large oil company as an engineer, from drilling wells to refining. I know more about the impacts on the environment that oil usage has on the world and made my peace with it. Essentially, I've seen the chop house and still eat meat. I make efforts to minimize my footprint, lifestyle, diet, adoption, and make sure every project I work on is as safe as possible. I support alt energy and green policy through both advocacy and voting. Essentially, a company is made up of people, and the more good actors the better. I have more effect on my projects inside than 1,000 protesters outside, and I'm more knowledgeable about what changes effect the most benefit than your average protester. Realistically, my industry will be around at least until I retire, and it will have provided a stable job for me and my family. There are a lot of legitimate complaints about how major oil companies act, but also lots of people don't want to accept their role in climate change, so they project it out on the company. Generally, I've caught a fair amount of slack for my profession, been turned down for dates solely for my job, and my current group of friends jokingly call me mixed company. But really, I didn't want to date or be friends with people who can't separate individuals from companies, or at least be respectful of having different opinions regarding it. That's great, and it's amazing you have that choice. I feel like this post needs a qualifier about why people are working for certain companies. I mean, most people I know have almost no choice. They apply for jobs and have to take the first/best paying option to survive, no matter what it is, and have zero expectation of staying in any job for more than a few years based on experience. It isn't their fault and it's not something they can control, just bad luck with the economy or trouble trying to get through school. I don't think that can be held against anyone. A job is a job. But people with good education and training who do have options in the current market, I think it's reasonable to question the morality of the companies they decide to align with. If you had a choice, you made a choice. Edit. Clarified wording. This isn't an exact match to what you are asking, but I worked for an MLM company for many years in it. At first I didn't know much about MLMs, but over the years I started working on more of the back-end systems and started to see more of the numbers and financials about what really goes on. There were times, for instance tax time reports, where it kinda broke my heart, knowing exactly what goes on vs the expectation that all MLM sellers have when they join. Most days though, you don't see all that, and you just have to do day-to-day stuff and solve issues that are generic to any company. It wasn't until internal company politics got ugly during some lean years that I decided to leave. To this day, whenever I hear of a close friend or relative say that they are thinking about selling such and such product for one of these companies, I try and sit down and tell them some concrete things that I saw to talk them out of it. Hardly ever works, but I try. I used to work for SeaWorld Entertainment. Ultimately, yay, they're pretty shit. When they hire you, they hand out these booklets with all the great stuff they do for the marine environment, as if none of us have ever heard of the Blackfish documentary. Then they tell you that you shouldn't join a union. So the shit goes down the chain pretty far, but my manager was alright enough. You see that sort of thing everywhere, but not every corporation has the pull to cause the same damage. In reality the shit SeaWorld's done pales in comparison to Nestle. I guess my point is, nobody's clean. You just have to decide what kind of support is worth the job. Like, plenty of people work on oil rigs because the pay is just so good, even if the business is fucked. And no, it didn't impact my life or relationships, because most people don't even really think about who owns the park, even though it's heavily advertised. They just know the place employs a lot of locals and brings in a lot of tourism. And hey, they give you great deals on passes. On a final note, just to give perspective on the nobody is clean thing, I design industrial machinery now. Sometimes it's for a lab to create medicine. Sometimes it's to help clean oil spills. Other times it's for oil refineries or Tyson's chicken factories, which are fucking disgusting BTW.